Hello, welcome to Why Not Both. My name is Pam Schaefer, and I'm a musician and therapist in Los Angeles. Why Not Both is all about how our multiple passions inform our identity, and this season we are brought to you by Under the Radar magazine and produced by Laura Studeris. If you like what you hear, please make sure to like us and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform and come spend time with us on social media. We are at WNB the podcast, and that is both on Instagram and on Twitter. For this episode, we got to spend time with the multi-talented artist, Lido Pimienta. She is absolutely amazing, and of course I recommend her music. While you're listening to this episode, though, she would love if you check out the GoFundMe that she started to help support families in Colombia. It is called the Solidarity Fund for Vulnerable Families, Colombia, and it is linked in the podcast description. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy our interview. Welcome to Why Not Both, where we've sort of mastered technology, maybe.
It's okay, though. At least we have that.
Exactly. I've got to say, it's been such a privilege during this time to be able to actually talk to people. And it's like I'm hanging out in my living room, but I get to hang out everywhere in the world and meet people. So I'm like, not so bad.
This is very true.
I was wondering, what have you been up to? Normally, I start the podcast asking what it is you do and what's a better question to ask. But during quarantine times, I'm like, it's free form. How's it going?
It's been pretty good. I am someone who enjoys being home, so that's a good thing for me. Of course, we just released an album, so we want to be on the road.
Yeah.
But, I'm a firm believer of nothing forced is ever good. So I'm just embracing every opportunity that I do have. Luckily, I had already shot a few music videos, and I had prepared a few assets. Mm-hmm. But right now, I'm in the middle of renovating my music and my art studio.
Ooh.
Because when Rona started officially, I just started painting more, and now I'm like, you know what? I am not going to go on tour at all for a year. So right. Let me just take everything out of the boxes. So we're cutting wood right now. I'm in a little room right now, trying for you to have good sound. But if I move slightly over there, you're going to hear a saw chopping wood. But yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm just, I'm trying to fundraise money for families in Colombia, families of musicians and traditional musicians in Colombia. So that's been something that I've been trying to do pretty, just trying to help as much as I can while I'm, cutting wood.
Yes. And it's a strange thing, being isolated in a way, but also connected, that you can help, even though you're I'm in my art and music studio cutting wood, but I'm also helping people. That was one of the reasons that I really wanted to interview, is I saw that you did so much social activism, and balancing that with creativity. I was just that takes a lot of effort. It's that takes a lot of energy.
Well, for me, I just see it as I'm a mom. Moms are extra with it, so I'm just extra with it, and I'm very blessed. I'm very lucky. I have a wonderful partner, so he just lets me do, not he has to give me permission to do anything, but it's I freely can go and plan my day and know that I have somebody that will help me and share the responsibilities, not just oh, well, you're the mother, so your job is to do this and this and that, so right. That's really good, because a lot of my friends are actually breaking up because they've had together for so long, and they just are realizing actually we're not a match. So that's been really good for me too, just to reiterate, I actually have a good partner, and that has made me realize, how much more that I can do, because I feel that too, like as a mom and someone who cares and has this mother energy that wants to take care of other people, that sometimes I don't even know my own potential. So to be um, just sit down and have to be in the same place for a while, it really helps you understand and see how much more you can help, but also what you're capable of. So that's where I'm at right now in terms of, you know, helping out, but also working on my own art, writing new music, all of the things, and telling myself, this really is something that you were born to do, and this is something that you can do, and that you should absolutely be doing. So just with that realization, I'm just blessed, and I just keep just creating, because that's what makes me the most happy and whole.
Well, and it sounds like by feeding that part of yourself, then you're able to give of that like mother energy, like you talked about, and that you have a teammate that's on your side that's like, yep, I got your back.
Surrounded by wonderful, wonderful people that want to see me win and be happy. So yeah.
Well, and then you can translate that to helping other people. Like, and when you were talking about fundraising for families in Colombia, like, is there a way that we could find that so I could link to it on the podcast so other people can get on board?
Yeah.
Excellent. I was talking to Kathleen Hanna, who's doing Teas for Togo, that like also same thing where I linked on here, that it makes me so happy to know that even though it's so strange, it's like almost having the physical constraint of not being able to go somewhere, we've all been getting really creative of, well, how can we actually help other people?
Yeah, I love Kathleen Hanna. They've been really supportive of me. It's really great. Yeah.
It's interesting because she mentioned a similar thing where she's been doing a lot of like physical crafting, and what you're talking about, like rearranging your space. I find that at the very least for me, that definitely changes my process. Like when I rearrange my artistic space, it loosens things up a bit. Like it makes me think about what I'm creating in a different way because now my environment's different.
Be productive if your space is crap. Like you need to, I was thinking about that today, about, this preconception of, I mean, not just like the cliche of the starving artist, but also like there is this misconstruct, I don't even know what to say, but there's this idea that artists are dirty, disorganized, and that in that mayhem they thrive, but to me it's the opposite. And I feel like for most of us, there's a difference between being a productive artist and the depressed artist, because I feel like, I feel like there, for sure, there must be a very prolific artist that's very successful out there that thrives on that random mess. But for me, there's something very spiritual about giving reverence to a space, a clean space, and a clean mind where you can really get into your power through art. But it can't happen for me if things are dirty and out of place. Like things really need to be clean so that I feel like I'm breathing, and then I can really be my best self.
Well, and that way you can expand into it. Like what you're describing, I relate to very much. Like if my space is, I don't mind if it's like, I would say I'm a clean but not always tidy person. Like occasionally I'll have like a sweater over a chair, things like that. Like that I can tolerate. But if it's almost like when it reaches a capacity where there's too many things that might distract me in my space, it's like I can't focus on tuning into creative thoughts if I'm like, ugh, I have to clean the dishes. I'm like, they're calling to me, I must do them. Like, yeah. It's like it detracts from what I'm supposed to be focusing on, which is like, oh, how can I tune into what I'm working on expressing?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's fascinating that you turned to painting. I'm so curious. I'm like, are you painting on canvas? Are you painting on wood? Like what are you working with?
Well, I do have a whole other artistic practice. I am a ceramist and a printmaker, bookbinder. Yeah, so I make a lot of stuff. When Rona started, we ordered blank vinyl, or like blank covers because the vinyl came with my songs. So we order a bunch of the records with blank covers, and I painted a limited edition vinyl cover series.
Ooh.
That's gonna take me. Okay, we order 100. It's gonna take me like a week to paint them. Because I thought this is gonna take a month, and then we'll be back on the road. So, it was a lot of like hope and dreams and crafts and art energy and those, and we're still there. Yeah, that, and I did a whole like ceramic series of medallions and things, and that's what I'm doing right now. I'm just like, we're gonna get a kiln in the studio. Ooh. So I'm just basing everything, because this is my I just need to be creating all the time, and sometimes I don't really feel like singing. Sometimes I don't really feel like making music. I mean, I'm always making it at some point. I'm always making it, but you don't really always feel like sitting at the computer and looking at a screen. Sometimes I want to draw. Sometimes I want to write. I'm learning how to write scripts because I have all these ideas for a TV series, and I'm just all over the place.
I love that.
I'm all over the place creatively, really. Yeah.
That's like the whole thesis of the podcast, is like, why do we feel like we're supposed to be limited to one thing? Like, if anything, it's like the other things that then fuel probably the messages in your music. Like, if you just only did music, it would be the same.
For sure. I mean, I see myself as an angel. Like, I'm an angel. I'm full of light. I have this beautiful creative artistic energy. I am a channel. I help people communicate with their own soul. It's so funny because I'm always making fun of my friends. Like, I call them that they're hippie because they really know about like astrology, but like low key, high key, I am. But I can really myself. I really recognize myself as an angel, and I see myself as a star, and like I'm, but not star in like the mainstream way, but star in that I know that I am made of stardust. Yes. Just like humans, we are made of stardust. So yes. When you really hone into your art, when you really realize this artistic potential and how you can invite other people into your own soul, that's a great power, and like I really, like people, there's a lot of talk about like time traveling, what's gonna happen, we can time travel, and I was like, I feel like music has been teaching us how to time travel. So you listen to music from when you were a child, it takes you back there, right? So I think about that a lot, especially I'm writing this thing where I'm thinking about those songs that like awaken different things of myself. And you really time travel with music, so I think that's a beautiful power, and so that makes me feel like I am a bridge between generations, between people, between feelings, between angst, between rage, all of our rages and all of our vulnerabilities. So yeah, I don't know where I would be without art. Like I really don't know how people who are not creative do it. And also like when you see tragedies with like very young people that kill other people, or when adults kill other human beings, I can tell, it's just like this person didn't have a creative outlet. This person didn't have any other healthy ways of releasing that pain or letting go of that hate. Yeah. So that's where I come from. And I don't know why, I'm really young, but I always feel like I only have 5 years left on earth. So I need to do everything. So that's also like another reason why I know that I need to be productive and prolific, like being prolific to me has a very deep meaning, and I want to leave a legacy behind me, and I want to leave something for my children, and I want to be a synonym to greatness and love and spirit and hope, and that can only happen if I go hard and with as I do, I just all the time, so yeah.
When you said that we're made of stars, it sounds like you are doing what a star does, which is stars explode. They supernova. And that's why I was reading an article that a lot of the calcium on our planet and in our bones and in our teeth comes from exploded stars. So that's how you leave a legacy, is you have to explode.
Yes. Explode.
Exactly. And so that's a beautiful energy that you talked about in time traveling through music, because it does bring you back to listen to songs from your childhood or even songs from different points of your life. And I was reflecting even on like songs that I can hear in my head when you said that. And I was curious what songs are particularly like meaningful for you in that way.
Well, any song that is by artists like Joy Arroyo or Celia Cruz, those anthems, unifying for my diaspora, like when I was growing up in Colombia. That's very important songs to me, but also lullabies are very important to me because I am a mom, and I've been able to teach my children language through song, and it all starts with those lullabies,
Yeah.
And I don't know how, and I think it's because when I sing to my children, when I sing these lullabies to my children, it's because because I want them to go to sleep, but I also hope that in that memory and in that repetition, the memory or the time traveling experience happens where I can hear my mother singing those to me, because I know for a fact that my mom doesn't know all those songs. So I'm like, who was the person who was teaching me so many lullabies? Because my mom, when she hears me singing to my kids, she's like, where'd you learn that one? I don't know that one. It's like, that's so strange. So yeah, like those are the songs that take me back. Of course, there's always, again, back to this thing that I'm writing. I've been like this to I Don't Want to Miss a Thing by Aerosmith.
Oh my gosh.
I don't
want to miss a thing.
Like, I was in junior high when I was listening to that. And the reason why I remember that, it's not like I love the song, but in Colombia, in Barranquilla, the song was very popular. So everyone in my class, of course, they knew that I could sing. So they would be like, Lido, please, this song, please. I would say it, and then like all this, my classroom would just like gather around me, and they would just like, sway back and forth and like sing the song, and like, so like it was so strange because like I didn't have the best time at school, but every moment that I had was because of music or because of my artwork. When the kids weren't bullying me, where my kids were really respected and looked up to me because they were like, oh, this weirdo, she can really sing. Can you sing that song? Like that. Those are the songs that it's just like, I don't know, maybe I'm trying to like redeem my childhood and my I don't know, pre-teen years. I don't know.
So much cultural memory in songs. When you spoke of the diaspora of living in one place as a child and then being in another place as an adult and carrying some of those cultural memories with you through song, even when your mom wasn't the one who sang them to you. Like, that is a form of time travel, and it is a way to stay connected to different generations and to pass on to future generations. Like, there's a word for it, and I'm blanking on the name of it, that we like encode memories in our genes. Like, they're researching how we remember things genetically. And I was like, artistic expression is such a huge part of that. Like, there are certain melodies that I hear that just feel like they just feel correct somehow, like they feel like in alignment. And I'm sure that there must have been times when I heard them as a child that just feel like, oh, that's my melody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's, oh, I was like, I feel bad that kids were mean to you unless you were singing, but I'm also like, that I like that you at least had that redeeming moment of being like, I can sing this Aerosmith song and now you'll respect me.
Yeah, it was that. It was the Spice Girls or the other band. I forget their name, but nobody knows it, but you have a secret smile and you use it only for me. You remember that song?
Oh my gosh.
Right? So
Yes.
that song, I don't know why they played it so much. And, you know, this is like, everyone's like a preteen, everyone's like this and all that stuff. And they would just be like, oh, can you sing the song? Can you sing this? And I'm like, okay. So that's why I know all those songs so much, because I would have to sing them over and over again. And then, of course, now, you know, like all the kids that I went to school, they're like, I knew that you were going to be somebody one day. And I'm like, yeah, thanks.
I wonder if they have it. I found in quarantine times, I found some of my old journals, and there was actually a note in like my 7th grade journal talking about how I thought that Jake Gyllenhaal was going to be famous. And I was like, cool. At least I got one.
Very good.
Because I was like, he was a few grades ahead of me, and I thought he was really dreamy because it was the 90s. But I was right. Like 12-year-old me was totally right.
Wow. Well, hopefully you run into him in the streets.
Right? And just be like, hey, totally believe it.
My journal. I predict your future.
Exactly. Just call me Nostradamus.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I mean, what is your relationship with, I'm trying to think of how to phrase it. Like being from one culture and moving to another culture, like what is your relationship with being of two cultures? Like that, I'm trying to imagine what that would be like, basically swapping it up and being like, how am I in both worlds?
Well, I just come to terms with, you know, living a hyphenated existence. And it comes with, I guess the training really begins when you learn another language, you know, and the brain is just going back and forth and back and forth. And often I forget to say things in one language and I can only say it in the other language, and it's very confusing, but that's what it is, you know. You just learn how to exist, and you make yourself whole with knowing that you have all this culture to be inspired by and to be drawn by and to be clear with, you know. I feel like the complexities behind all of the blood that runs through me is the only way that somebody like me could survive, because I have so many dreams and I have so many visions, and I see so much all the time, and I know that if I was only one thing, it wouldn't really make any sense, and I would doubt myself and think that there must be something off with myself, that I have all these visions and all these ideas and all the things that I want to do all the time, but I know that it's a gift that I have, being from here and from over there, and sometimes from nowhere.
Right.
You know, that's another thing, is like to have all this culture, but also there's something really real about not feeling like you belong.
Yeah.
So I also, you know, I live in Canada, and I cannot say that I'm Canadian. And then I go to Colombia, but I also cannot say that I'm Colombian because my family is Indigenous.
Right.
You know, like, but then if I go to my Indigenous side and I tell them that, well, I am only Indigenous, they're going to be like, wait, no, you're Colombian.
Yeah, they're going to be like,
like that's the thing. And some would even say, well, you're Canadian, you know? And then I'm going to be like, well, if you talk to Canadians don't even know what their own culture is. So we're really fucked. That's what it's like. It's big. It's a lot of a lot and a lot of nothing.
Yeah, when hearing you speak of it, it sounded like basically in my mind I thought of when you were talking about speaking different languages, because languages are so specific to culture, and that there are certain things that it's almost like you wouldn't have the words for it in one culture to the other. And so you need specific words in different languages for those cultures, but then you wouldn't need them in the other. So I would imagine that occasionally there'd be like a blank space where you're like, oh, I want the word for that, but there's no word for that.
Yeah, I mean, there's word, there's also expression, mannerisms. Like, there's so much that it's just like, I don't know, like at the same time, you also can connect with people through very unusual to the mainstream things. Like, for instance, my family, I mean, I thought that everybody I thought that everybody did this, but when I first moved to Canada and I started high school here, and people would ask me for something, I would point, but with my mouth.
Oh.
And people were so confused. Like, I'm like in London, Ontario, Canada. It's like a very white little city in Ontario. And I'm pointing with my mouth and they're looking at me like, are you trying to blow me a kiss? That's what it is. I'm pointing with my mouth, which is like what we do in Colombia. Like, my family would put their mouth. It was only until when I met my Indigenous friends or Native friends, First Nations here in Canada, that I saw someone doing the same thing, pointing with their mouth, that I was like, okay, all right, hey, thank you. And they're like looking at me like, what happened?
Like, what happened here? What did I do?
You pointed with your mouth. I'm like, what do you mean? You don't do it? I'm like, that's what I do. But when I first did it, and so it's like just stuff like that it's like, oh, all right, okay.
It's like like code switching where you're just like, oh, oh, you don't know what I'm doing there. Okay, but you know what I'm doing there.
And I mean, I came here, old enough, but also not mature enough to understand what code switching was, or even understand any of it. So, but it gets easier, of course. It gets easier with time.
Yeah, and I was listening to your music while there's got to be something sparkly about your music. I was taking a walk before I interview while listening to your album, and I kid you not, like multiple people stopped me to say hello, which was interesting because I was wearing my earbuds and a mask and sunglasses, so I looked like the Elephant Man. But like multiple people like said hi, and like I would take out my earbud, I'm like, what? And they were like, oh, hi. And I was like, hi? And like, I don't know if it's just that it was interesting because I was feeling really enlivened while walking and listening to your songs. And I understand some Spanish, but am not a Spanish speaker. And so there were moments where I was just like, oh, I want to look up the lyrics because I want to understand more of what the song is. But I also, I guess, was just really feeling the vibe of the songs.
Well, that's what I told you too. I am an angel after all.
Yeah, I really enjoyed listening to it because I could feel what you were talking about. And that's, it's interesting when I listen to songs that are not in a language that I necessarily speak, because I'm like, oh, this is going to be a different experience than if it's in a language that I am going to understand the lyrics to. And I find that I listen to it far differently because I'm listening for like, well, what are the emotional cues? Like, it's pure emotional cues. Being like, I was wondering, do you write lyrics in multiple languages, and do you dream in multiple languages? Like, when I talk to people who are multilingual, I'm always curious what their main form of expression and like unconscious expression is.
I definitely do dream in different languages. Sometimes I dream in French, which is really weird.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, yeah, like if I watch, I watch a lot of foreign films, so I'm pretty sure that's why. But yeah, I mean, I just recently I started writing songs in English as a challenge to myself, and also I accidentally wrote a full-on song for Ricky Reed, which is gonna be in his next album. I thought that I was writing a song for like Billie Eilish or Alicia Cara, one of those people. But then, no, you're gonna be in the album with this song in English. So that was interesting. And the song is very extremely hopeful and happy and beautiful. And I don't feel like that's what I do in my own music. So I'm like, okay, I should challenge myself more and see what else can I write. But yeah, I shouldn't be afraid of it anymore.
Yeah, I'm so curious what would come out. Like, I think of like how Bjork tends to write in English. And I think that just popped in my head. I was just like, like there are certain artists where, you know, obviously like English is spoken in Iceland as well, but it's like there's such a nuance to the Icelandic language as I'm learning more of it that, you know, is different than the English language. And I was like, I wonder why she chooses to write lyrics in English. Like what informs, like you said, that like that kind of like wild optimism and like hope somehow translated to being in English. And I was like, that's really interesting.
I mean, I don't write in English because I don't want to. I would love to be able to write a full-on album in English as my project, but I need to learn how to nail nuance in English, which so I don't know how to do that yet, because in Spanish, the things that I talk about, you know, I sing mostly poems. And it makes sense and they sound really good when read out loud. But if I were to do what I do, or the lyrics, or say what I want to say in English, it would sound like, I don't know, like amateur poetry writer class, you know, after school program for mature students. You know what I'm saying? Like, it would not be good, you know? So when I wrote this song for Ricky, I guess because I was imagining what somebody like Alessia Cara or Billie Eilish, something that they would be singing, I got myself into their role, or I felt like, so I put myself into their position, and that helped write the song. And it sounds nice, you know, it's not something that I would write, or for me.
Right.
But now I'm trapped. So you'll see it, and there's a video for everything that'll come out eventually. So
I love that. Now I'm trapped, and so you'll have to witness this great music.
Yeah, I hope.
But no, you mentioned that like writing for other people, you could get into different characters almost. And that's interesting to me, that those characters then, when you're like, if I'm writing as Billie Eilish, then I can write in English because you're that character. And I was like, I wonder what characters you could access like as yourself, like if there's parts of yourself that you could access as different characters.
I have to wait and see, and I have to try it.
Yeah.
You know, when you don't find a need for it, you don't go to those places. But now that I for sure want to live in Toronto, and that I want to buy a house in the downtown area, or the west I live, I need to get into this game. I actually started a folder, and it says writing for someone else, and a song that I wrote for Beyonce, and I have a song that I wrote for Rihanna.
Ooh.
You know, I'll work on those more, and when they're ready, I'll send them and see. You never know if they'll like them. But for me, that's what I have to do in order to write a song that makes sense in English, is getting myself into the psyche of another artist, you know, studying what they do, and then bringing elements that I think they're going to like. And I think it's the curator in me, because that's like that's my actual degree in life, is a curator. So in terms of sound and writing for other people, there's a lot of, you know, curatorial practices that I do when it comes to, what other people might like. And it's working out because, and I'm glad it's out because, I really want to be able to continue to work in this way of writing and collaborating with other folks.
I was going to say, it's almost like kind of like a metaphysical collaboration where you're tuning into like who that person is, because when you're writing for someone else, like it's so personal. Yeah. And that's, I mean, how often are you finding yourself writing for other artists these days?
I will say half and half.
Yeah.
Half and half, because I'm writing my record. I'm writing like an anniversary record of my first ever attempt at a solo career, which is going to turn 10 years in September of this year.
Wow.
So I'm writing those songs, like rearranging them. But I'm also at 7 songs in, actually 9 songs now that I wrote for a next record. But also I am writing songs for other bands that have asked me to be on their records and other producers. So that's also really good because it gives me a break from myself, Yeah. Like I love Enya, but there's something that I find strange about Enya is that she only listens to her own music. And she only listens to herself. And she lives like in a castle somewhere.
I was going to say, the more I learn about Enya, the more fascinated I am. Because like I knew that she lived in like a castle with her cats, like produces her music, but I didn't know that she only listened to
She only listens to like her own stuff, like her and her crew. They have a very, that's why, this is a conscious decision, it's like she is making very extremely unique music, and that it's coming just from her imagination. I mean, she's putting herself through this torture, I feel like not being able to listen to music would be very torturous, but maybe this is just what she says just to keep the enigma of Enya, no pun intended, happening.
That was a great 90s joke.
I'm like traumatized. 2020 is already horrible, but Nickelback decided that they're gonna make it even more horrible, and they're gonna bring or drop something new on Friday. But like, fuck, like actually, I should tweet that right now, just to be like, fuck, like, really, Nickelback? Like, I much rather have another Enya record than have to listen again. You know what
I mean, I personally, I have never been more flattered than when someone called me the millennial Enya. I was like, bless you. Thank you.
She's amazing. Like, she's amazing. She's fascinating. That would be really great if I get an email from Enya being like, do you want to come to my castle?
That's like the dream. Instead of like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, it's Enya inviting her to your castle.
Exactly. Like, that would be so fantastic.
I'd be like, I'm allergic to cats. I will take every antihistamine to go to your castle.
That is like, sail away, sail away, sail away. Boom, 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 boom. Like, that is my jam. It's so strange, but so beautiful. So
yes.
Yeah. I really hope she drops an album. I really hope she does.
That would be a bright spot in 2020. I feel like we're all looking for those moments where we're like, is there a glimmer somewhere in here? Like just a little something, anything? Like, anything we can hold on to?
Yeah. Ugh, we can't. Nice.
Oh my gosh. And I'm glad to hear that you're creating in the midst of that. And I feel like though creatives, especially at the beginning, I don't know if you felt this way, that there was this odd pressure to like frantically create almost, because people were like, we're in lockdown, like let's live stream every day. And then after a few weeks, everyone was like, well, this is exhausting.
It was overwhelming. I did a little like funny IG story where I was like, there's too many IG live quote unquote shows.
Yep.
Too many dirty laundry in the background, too many dirty dishes that I don't need to see. I don't need to see your house. I don't need to see your feet. Like, keep it to yourself. Like, have some. Like, when people ask me to do the live thing. It's so humiliating. Like, I cannot. Like, we had, I don't know, 2 or 3 shows, and any time that I had to do a show, I was vomiting. I was like,
Oh,
I cannot handle the humiliation. I cannot do this. So bad. And like, you've worked so hard, finally get some good videos out there, finally like clean up your act, and then it's like going back to pixelated image, baby.
yep.
Woo-hoo!
Yep. And you're like, really?
I don't like it. But some people do. I mean, there's a big chunk of us artists that are huge narcissists. So it's like, oh, now I have a great excuse to be online even more.
Even more.
My collection of, I don't know what the hell, like, people just really like to put themselves out there and talk every 2 seconds, and it really is a testament of how not insecure but lonely people really are.
Yeah, I think that this has highlighted that.
I don't have that kind of time to be online all the time, and I have to push for my album, so I do feel a pressure to be like, hey, here I am, help me pay all my debts, buy my merch, but
Buy my stuff.
I mean, some people don't have anything to push, and they're all the time, they're just like, don't you have a life? Like, but for some people, online is their life, so true.
And there's like, when you were talking about all the things that you're doing, it's like, without all of those things, like, what is your art about? And even like Enya has her life in her castle with her cats, like, and that in a way, like, is what her art is about. Whereas it's like, I guess I have difficulty empathizing. Well, not empathizing. I have difficulty understanding where that wellspring of emotion comes from if you're always on display. Like, if you're always chatting online, if you're always like, in a way, performing, it's like there has to be something that fuels that performance, and there has to be something that inspires you to write that in the first place. And is it those interactions on like IG Live, or like, where does that come from? Because it sounds like you have like a very rich like inner life, and also find a lot of purpose that helps you then express yourself. Like, you're not just talking on IG about your dirty laundry and your feet, which I'm sure some love.
I do everything with intention. So when I am on IG Live or any of the live things that I want to do, it's because I'm doing something cool, And one of the good things that have happened in COVID era, I mean, the flip side, like the good side of this overly doing it with online interaction, is that, me and my friends who are very strong, badass women, we have decided to share more like playlists that only feature music made by women and female or women identifying folk. And we are having like really deep conversations. It's just like, I like the feature of like, you only have an hour, and then Instagram kicks you out, like, that's pretty cool. I think it's really nice that we're having those conversations and we're getting to know one another like that, like you were saying earlier. Like, you perhaps in a different context, we wouldn't really be talking right now, like, right. Maybe that usually I remember I a lot of interviews, but a lot of it were just like documents. A lot of it was just get like 10 questions, and then I have to write it, and then my management sends it to the source. But now I find that I'm talking so much with people from all around the world. And when it comes to my own social media, like, absolutely, like, on the 18th of this month, some this wonderful like festival / like group in Chile, they're like, we're gonna talk on IG and talk about like what it's like for me right now. So that's really great. And then I want to talk to this rapper in Toronto. Her name is Sidani, and she's hilarious online, and like, there's another woman called like, she goes by Bad Dominicana. Is hilarious too. And like, I've followed her and she's followed me, but we've never really had the chance to like go deep into things that we share. And now it's like this perfect time, so I feel like, I mean, something always has to give. And especially when you're someone with this kind of energy and this kind of life that I have, a lot of people come to my life but also leave, you know. But then there's another group of new people that come into my life, and those are blessings to me. So I feel like that's where I'm at this point where, you know, in the last 2 months I lost people, but due to our current circumstance, I've also earned, you know, respect and love for other people, or other people have given me that respect, and I'm giving it back.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at right now, and it's very hopeful. And I think the only thing that I'm missing that I hope that would happen is that instead of having to send kids back home or back to school, you know, because I have to worry about these things, is that they just make education through TV.
That's brilliant.
You know, like not everyone has cable. Like, we don't have cable. We just bought a TV for the first time. Like, my son, we've lived without a TV for 12 years, you know. So but well, we don't have cable. Like, it's basically like a giant screen where we, like, you know, airdrop stuff and like, airplay stuff, you know, like, it's not it's a giant screen, you know. But we would be really good if on the channels that everyone gets to see by just plugging in that giant screen, that you are able to learn a curriculum that is approved by government, all the whatever red tape, blah blah blah. But that's the only, you know, it's like, I will volunteer, you know, if you know, we can have every person in the neighborhood, they can volunteer, like, if, because there's, you know, out of 10 people, 2 can stay home, and
I was gonna say, so you can trade off,
you know, and then your kids can stay at my house, and, you know, or even, you know, there's so many ways that it can happen. It can really work, because I'm really worried about sending my son to school. So that's pretty much the only thing that I feel like we're still lacking, and I think it's because we don't really take children seriously. But I don't know, that's another conversation.
I was gonna say, it's, you know, like you said several things that I want to touch on, and like one of them is that issue of, like, how do we express cultural values? And I agree with you, because the same thing is happening in the US, that people are talking about sending children back to schools, and already there have been spikes in cases, obviously, because it's an airborne illness. And so it really does show the priorities of a culture based on where they put their resources. And I think that that's a brilliant workaround, is like, you know, most people have televisions, because I had thought about that in Los Angeles as well, about that there is such like a wealth divide here, that there are people who can very easily access technology so that they're able to access online curriculum. And then there's people who won't be able to do that normally would go to the library or things like that to access kind of technology. And also that there are people who can afford to take the time off to do, now they're doing this thing at LAUSD where it's like, I think it's 4 or 5 hours of mandatory school a day. But say you're a working parent, you can't somehow like manifest another 4 hours in your day to teach your child online, because most kids aren't going to sit there for 4 to 5 hours. Most adults wouldn't sit there for 4 to 5 hours of online instruction.
Go to work, because you have to go to work. But if your company has a break room or a conference room or whatever that's already not really in use, then you can bring your kids to school and put them in front of a TV and have them be with their books and read, and then they're done when you're done.
Exactly.
Not that difficult. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, my son can be home. So I am looking into the possibilities of homeschooling.
Yeah.
But he can stay home. Both of us, me and my baby daddy, we are home. So we do that, you know. But a lot of my friends, they have to go to work, and what are they gonna do with their kids, you know?
Yeah.
So
and
that's the tricky part. But if you can take them to work, you don't have to worry about it.
Exactly. Or if you can collaborate, that was the next thing that I was thinking of, is like to collaborate and to have that kind of community resource. That I find, I've never been to Toronto, so I don't know what the culture is there, but I know that in the US right now, it's like the culture is so individualistic that that's what's harming us. Like that's because there's no communal aspect. There's no like what I do affects other people and what they do affects me. It's like people have this illusion that like our actions don't affect each other when they in fact dramatically do. And so it's like if people had more of a communal aspect where it's like where you knew your neighbors, where you knew that like your kids could work together and like that was, you know, say Tuesdays was your day to like have the kids over for school. And then that you just rotate. Like,
yeah, I mean, but you know, there's so much and like you know, like not you can't really trust everyone with your kids.
right.
But so I just feel like if this government can afford like a 3D printer, washing machine, microwave, shotgun for the police,
Right.
you know, if they can come up with this like high tech, whatever drone, artillery for police, you know, which are people that don't have big IQ anyways. Like if you have that money, then you can definitely have, you know, staff
Yes.
to watch the kids while parents are working in your place of work.
Yep.
And then you don't have to worry about sending your kids to nobody's house, you know, because it is, I mean, I would take care of my friends' kids, no problem.
Right.
But there's a lot of kids out there that are just a bunch of brats that I don't want in my house. Because the work, love them, but you know,
You're like, have you met kids?
kids that have no discipline, and I am not about to get into a fight with no parent out there.
Oh, so
it could be very easy by just, oh, you gotta go to work.
Yep.
Bring your son, bring your daughter, bring your kids. We'll turn on the TV and give them popcorn. I don't know. It's like that. Like, you know how happy my son would be. Like
he'd be like, "This is great." And you spoke to something else that, you know, I think that the pandemic is definitely revealing of almost like when people are in your life for a season and then it's like the season changes and it sounds like you just had like a seasonal change where like new people are coming into your life and you are making these new connections based on where you're at.
yeah.
And that even when you were saying earlier that like a lot of people have been breaking up, like my day job is that I'm a therapist and I have seen so many quarantine breakups now, like there's between like my friends and my clients, and like I think it's really highlighting that it's almost like we were forced to see that there's like a season that's ended and that now a new one has begun and there are certain things that we used to tolerate and that we used to put up with and that now we simply like don't.
Yeah.
But I see that much, like you said, I see that as a good thing when like, because it's like when you've grown, sometimes there are people who have to exit your life.
Yeah, and that's you know, that's what they should be actually teaching in school. That's what they should be teaching in school. It's just like today we're gonna talk about people.
Yeah.
Have now are not gonna be with you forever, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And people coming in and out, and that's totally okay.
And then some people will change with you and some people won't.
Mm-hmm.
And accepting that and like being open to like the new artistic connections that it sounds like you were making. I was like, oh my God, those all sound awesome. It's like, I'm excited to see where those go. Because I've been feeling similarly where it's like, you know, I did not anticipate I've talked to now like over 50 people in half a year. Didn't see that one coming.
Yeah. Trust.
And I'm like, I'm on board for this ride. I didn't see this ride on the horizon, but I'm here for it.
It's a lot and it's gonna be like this for a while. But
yeah, I liked a client said to me, they were expressing that they felt disappointed in themselves that they hadn't like adjusted better to Corona times. And I was like, well, even though it's technically like a new normal-ish, it's a new normal that's very weird. I'm like, and they were like, oh, is it like walking in snow? And I said, how do you mean? And they said, well, when you first start walking in snow, it's like really awkward and you trip all over everything. And then like you get better at it, but you're still walking in snow. Like it's still like challenging and you have to like sort out where your feet are going and it might be like up to your knees. And I was like, yes, that's a great analogy. I was like, it gets more manageable, but you're never like, oh, this is just like walking on pavement. Like you're still walking through snow.
Yeah, this is out of control, but we'll make it through. We'll make it through. And yeah.
Yes. And at least, you know, like you were talking about, at least we are creating, and it sounds like you've been doing your damnedest to feel inspired, and that's really cool. I was thinking about like all the stuff that you just enumerated that you were making, and I was just like, I am so grateful that you are tapping into that expression and that I get to witness it basically.
Thank you. It's been so good. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you taking the time, especially in the midst of everything.
Yeah.
Thank you again for listening to this episode of Why Not Both. If you liked what you heard, please make sure to like us and subscribe to us on your preferred podcast platform. You can also come hang out with us on social media. We are at WNB the podcast, both on Instagram and on Twitter. This season, we are brought to you by Under the Radar magazine. Under the Radar is a nationally distributed print, music, and entertainment magazine and website. You can find them at www.undertheradarmag.com and feel free to support them on Patreon. Extra special thanks to our producer, Laura Studeris, who is literally a rock star. Thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you next episode. Thank you.